Oh, we got somebody else in the waiting room. Ready. All righty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Mumbo Jumbo Community Conversations. My name is Chinye Lumwa Africa, longtime member of the Kepler Institute family, and I'll be facilitating or helping to facilitate our conversation today as we're joined again by Damon Taziyah, leading us through, I believe this is our last session on cooperatives and cooperative economies. Very excited to get into that. If you're interested in seeing some of our previous sessions, you can find them on the Facebook page of the Indianapolis Recorder. Before we get into it today, just because I think I know Steve is new. Gloria, I'm not sure if you're new, but I'm gonna find out in a few seconds. For those of you that are new to the space, we like to start all of our community gatherings, all of our community meetings with a wellness check-in. And typically that just looks like we go around the room, everybody answers a set of questions, and then passes it to the next person. And that's basically just so that we can, be aware of each other, be aware of each other's, state of being, because to take care of each other, we got to know how everybody is. So those three questions are typically just, we ask for a number and a color that are basically both supposed to describe what your state of being is for that day or in that particular moment. And then we typically have an icebreaker question as well, something that's a little bit more qualitative. So it's like in the past, we've done stuff like, if you were a plant, what plant would you be? Sometimes we go deeper, like, what's your greatest fear? We don't have to do that today. I would like to take suggestions from the group, just like before we, get into it. Does anybody have a suggestion for a check-in question that we could use for our check-in today?
I'll throw one in the pot.
Yeah.
I may have asked this. Ask it again. Assuming that you understand what a co-op is, if you were to start a co-op, what would it be and why?
Oh, I like that one. I like that one. And then maybe we could include in there kind of like everybody's understanding of what a co-op is as well, just real briefly. But yeah, I like that a lot. Damon, do you want to go ahead and get it started? Show everyone how it's done?
Just need time to think about it. I am a sky blue 8.5 today. Probably a 9 if it wasn't for the weather. But seeing my old college professor Mannheimer gave me the 0.5, so I'll go 8.5. And I think I've said it before, but my understanding of a cooperative is essentially a group of people working together cooperatively towards a common goal. And the legal structure of a cooperative doesn't necessarily have to be part of working cooperatively, like we've been doing here at Kepler for decades now. Showing my age. And if I was to start a cooperative, it would be a venture studio. So owned by community, and the owners, of course, institutional partners, things of that nature. But we would start new companies for new social impact. So that would be my cooperative ventures. I think there's a company out there like that, start.coop. So anybody interested, check them out. And I'll pass it to Gloria.
And real quick, again, Gloria, I don't know if you're new, yes, but if you are, and this goes for everybody, if this is your first time being in the space, also just take a moment to introduce yourself, tell everybody kind of who you are, and then how you found out about the space and what what brings you here today. If that's not too much.
Yes. Not at all, of course. Hi, everyone. My first Mumbo Jumbo was maybe 6 months ago, so I am essentially new. My connection to Kepra is twofold. One, Maurice Broaddus is a mentor of mine, and then I work for Inglewood CDC, but my interest in connecting with Kepra is disassociated from my organization. Um, if I remember, I also was going to say 8.5 before you said 8.5, Damon. If I were a color, it would be like a brilliant hibiscus fuchsia. And if I were to start a co-op, it might be in relation to a small business I am working on called In Every Person a Universe, after the quote by Elie Wiesel, never see a person as an abstraction, but see in every person a universe. And it would be related to creativity, social justice, and emotional fitness. Oh, and I'm passing it off to Steve.
Thank you. Everybody's saying 8.5, and I because I'm so old, I think of Fellini's 8.5, which was a movie like from the late 50s and early 60s. But this is probably what you're not referring to. So I'm going to go with 7 because I figure everybody is a notch or two above me. Plus 7 and Stephen are almost the same word, and there are more irrational reasons to like things. Blue, like 75-80% of Americans, blue is my favorite color, although there are obviously shades of blue, as people have suggested. So I'm going, I'm kind of with Damon. I like sky blue, but sky blue late in the day when it's starting to turn a little deep. In terms of a co-op, again, I think I'm sort of echoing what other people have said, that I very much like the idea of a co-op for creative urban strategies, urban ideas. That is to say, anything, system, process, interaction that enhances the experience of living in a city, particularly our city. And we tend to think very practically about, that'll cost $1 billion. That's never going to happen. We're going to put a geodesic dome over downtown. That's not going to cost $1 billion. It's going to cost $500 billion. And I say, yeah, but having that idea, even if it's completely impractical, having that idea is the swizzle stick that stirs the drink, so to speak. So I'm a big fan of that kind of irrational or impractical brainstorming, but with a practical goal. So I like that general ballpark. I don't know what form that co-op would take, whether it's an online Zoom conversation or getting together. People tend to be more creative when they're face-to-face and they can sense body language and voice tonality. And it just, there's a unconscious social process that happens that you don't quite get in Zoom. So, and creativity is part of that, or the social energy is part of creativity. So I would imagine it would need to happen face-to-face at least part of the time. That's all I got.
And before you pass it to someone else, tell us just like a little bit about who you are and how you found out about the space.
Sorry, yes, you asked for that. Well, I am a retired college professor, and I have been in the past, since I retired about 1.5 years ago, I've been spending a lot of time trying to become better educated, frankly, about the Black community. And in one of those endeavors out into cyberspace, I found the Kepra Institute. Kepra, how do you pronounce it correctly?
Yeah, Kepra, yeah.
Kepra. And so I signed up for the newsletter, and then I noticed that Damon was going to be one of the speakers. And I've known Damon, I don't know, 25 years or something. So I said, well, I'm going to listen.
Fantastic. Thank you for being here. And just pass it to anybody else in the room who hasn't gone.
Well, how about Pambana. Ma'am, please.
Hey everybody. So sunlight white 8 because I don't see any blue skies or sun today. And my I guess definition of a cooperative is individuals collectively working together, sharing the risk and sharing the prosperity. And then also coming together to address a community issue. And when I thought about what I would, if I could do it, what I would like to do would be to take two ends of the spectrum in terms of aging. So it would be like early childhood development and elder, I guess you would say, care, and create a cooperative that allows them to interact with each other, but also, challenging the elders to still stay mentally active and engaged, and then helping young people, little people, grow and develop, but have that interaction with elders too to help them in their growth and development. So that would be my cooperative. And I'm gonna take a stab at your name, but if I mess it up, let me know. So I see the A, but I'm thinking the A is silent and I don't know. So is it Aether, or how do you pronounce your first name?
Oh, Aether, you can just call me Candace.
Okay. So your first name is?
My first name is Candace, but
Oh, because like it's got Aether first. Is that your
yeah,
last name?
In
Aether.
business,
Okay.
in business, and as a writer, I go by Aether Candace.
Okay. So I'll pass it to you, Candace.
Thank you. I'm Candace. I'm an 8. Royal purple today. Purple's my favorite color, usually that color all the time. I found out about Kepra through the Climate Justice Alliance, and I haven't been on this with this group for about a month or so. Co-op for me is people coming together for a common goal that has manifested into a business. So something that is actually on paper and legally tangible. For me, this is actually something I have really been working on for years, and that is a healing space that allows for facilitators or healers like myself to help people. So essentially, it's like a filling station where you can, when you're burnt out and when you are just like done, you come to this place and you get refilled and replenished and back to the person that you are and that you want to be. And with this space, there other healers can come in, and teach classes and do things like that, and host retreats. So I was trying to do that out of the country a few different times, but I might have to do it in the country. I don't know. But that is a real life goal of mine, to have a co-op healing space to help people, to just be the oasis in the emotional, spiritual realm. And I will pass it to you, Chinyelu.
Yeah. And thank you for joining us again.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah. What's up, everybody? I'm feeling like a green 7 today. My understanding of a co-op, I think kind of similar to what Damon and Mama Pambana put forth, is it's one, doesn't necessarily indicate like that legal framework, and is more centered around a group of people coming together to create something, to produce something, to make something happen, and putting together sort of an organizational structure that's designed to like support that effort. And you don't have to be legally recognized to be organized, which is why I don't think it necessarily relates to a political structure. But my co-op, it would definitely be something centered around like art and culture. Some sort of like organization that is designed to support, I think like support like artistic ideas and forms of expression that don't really make it like in the mainstream like that. and really building a community that's centered around the idea of like, creation and creativity and like using people's voices to like create and hold space. So yeah, I'll pass it to Miss Victoria if you're available.
I am partially available. I can't show myself. I just hopped out to
All
shower.
good, all
Yeah.
good.
I first want to apologize for missing last week and apologize. So listen, I was in Wisconsin and then I missed a meeting and I'm like, dang, they not far from here. So I promise next year when I'm in Wisconsin, I'm gonna come to Indiana and meet somebody.
Hey, that'd be
And
fantastic. But
thank
we
you.
didn't meet last week. We didn't meet last week, so don't worry about it.
Okay, thanks. Great.
Yeah.
My color right now would probably be clear and a one. And my number would be a one because I'm like really tired. I had a long trip coming back. And now I got to get back into the swing of things. The plastic blew off of the greenhouse. I don't know anything about a co-op, but I would probably, I'm into everything. So it would be a mumbo jumbo. And what is the other questions?
No, that was it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead and pass it.
So who hasn't gone? Can you please just
I
step up?
think Cassandra's the only person who hasn't gone so far.
I will pass it to Cassandra.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I just literally got out of the bath, so I can't get on camera either. I was like, that's kind of funny. Um, so I've missed the questions. What are the questions?
So the questions were basically one, number and color as always to sort of like, describe how you are, how you're feeling. And then your understanding of what a co-op is, and then if you had to start a co-op, what would that be?
Okay, so of course, I said yellow 9 today. A little tired, ended up going to kickboxing and I just recovered from COVID, so that it just I'm a little tired.
Mhm.
Yeah, and my understanding of a co-op is it's pretty basic. It's just people that come together who there's no like sole owner. There like a bunch of owners, like everyone's an owner and everyone contributes and uh equally. That's my understanding of a co-op. And if I had a co-op, um, it would definitely be like a a cross between culture, music, and media, and also trying to save the world, trying to help out, basically just helping out wherever we can, but also making like documentaries and music at the same time. Um, and I think, yep, that's it.
Fantastic. We had one more person, but they dropped out. So I think everyone's checked in. I'll go ahead and pass it over to Damon. I'm sure, or at least it's very likely that more people will sort of join us, like as the conversation goes along. If they do, we'll just, find a good organic moment to pause and let them do their check-in as well. But for now, Damon, I hand the reins to you.
Thank you, Chen. And please keep me honest because I can ramble on. So
I will do
interject,
my best.
ask questions. And again, this is a learning discovery journey that we've been going through at Kepler, dare I say, for the last 3 or 4 years in a tangible way. So by no means claiming to be expert, but definitely curious about it and gaining a lot of knowledge and learning and getting great ideas for a lot of what we're doing within Kepler and within community. And a lot of it, the things that I'm reading are kind of justifying the work that we're doing. So it feels good and to be able to contribute to that in this way. Again, at any point, if you have questions, don't worry about raising your hand, just kind of interject because I'll keep going just to try to fill the time. Let me do a share screen. Can you give me share screen privileges, Shannon? And I'll do a little bit of recap. This is the fourth and last installment in kind of a four-part conversation we've been having about building cooperative communities. And it broke
You
down.
should be able to share. Go ahead and give it a share.
Sure. Just type 2. Can everybody see that? Everybody else.
Yeah.
Yes.
Slideshow. And yes, I typically have that many tabs open when I'm when I'm online. All right. Cultivating cooperative communities. We also call them social enterprises, collectives, mutual aid organizations, communal living, consortiums, SUSUs, ESOPs, et cetera, et cetera. But like I was saying, it's been part of a kind of 4-part discovery, curiosity, conversation session. We've had a lot of experts that we've invited in, as well as just general community coming in and providing some insights on it as well. And this kind of comes out of our community wealth building initiatives here at Kepler, which is part KIF, which is our Kepler Integrated Fund. And yay, we've issued, I believe, 5 recoverable loans to various social enterprises this year, and starting from last year as part of our first efforts in that, and received first payback from one of those in our revolving loan fund. So definitely check that out, kheprw.org. And then Alchemy, which is our kind of social enterprise entrepreneurial incubator and accelerator program, which I co-work and facilitate with DAP, who's one of the members here at Kepler. But kind of the conversation that we've been having is, first week was about cultivating cooperative communities. So we talked about, what's in the co-op, seeding cooperative communities in terms of how do you start co-ops, how do you get them up and running, governance, funding, et cetera, et cetera. Nurturing co-ops, how do you continue to grow and fund it through patronage, through investments, et cetera. And then lastly, we're talking about growing cooperatives today. And so what we've looked at is, co-ops that start small and how do they get big? And so what is that organizational structure that kind of keeps a co-op together, whether that be a local regional cooperative, a national cooperative, or a multinational cooperative? And we're going to go through 3 examples of that today. Just because I did hear there are some people on today's session that could utilize a little bit more information about cooperatives, I am going to fast forward, and we're going to watch a short video on what is a cooperative.
I don't think we can hear it, Damon. You might need to reshare and like optimize for video or whatever.
Thanks, appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
I just turned 45, so I'm in that age bracket where I'm like messing up on stuff. I used to be good at this. Let me see, share.
And then there should be like a little like tick
Thank
boxes in the bottom. Yeah.
Share sound, optimize for video clip. Thanks, young person. All right. Can everybody see my screen again?
Yep.
Yes.
And that's okay. I'm going to start it over.
But we don't see
the connection with
the
the people we
cooperative presentation. We see your, what do you
Daughter.
call
A
it?
photograph I took of my daughter. I swear Mannheimer's making me nervous today. Share screen. And share. There we go.
Got it.
Great. Thanks, Jen.
It's the connection with the people we serve that makes the future of electric cooperatives so bright. That's why we need to do everything we can to ensure that our members recognize they are part of something special. How can that be achieved? by staying true to the foundation on which we have stood for close to 75 years. Our co-op values and the 7 cooperative principles. Those principles are: 1. Voluntary and open membership. Everyone in the service territory is welcome to be a member. 2. Democratic member control. Every member has a say in every major decision, and board members are elected from and by the membership. 3. Member economic participation. Co-op members put equity into the cooperative, and all are allocated their fair share of any surpluses. 4. Autonomy and independence. Cooperatives are self-reliant and self-governed organizations, which gives them their spirit of independence. 5. Education, training, and information. Cooperatives educate members, elected representatives, and the public, particularly young people and opinion leaders, about the nature and benefits of cooperatives and about using energy wisely and safely. 6. Cooperation among cooperatives. Although each electric co-op is independent and locally based, there are more than 900 electric co-ops in 47 states serving more than 42 million consumers. By working together, this becomes a powerful national network of expertise and resources that all co-ops can use to be more effective. And finally, number 7, concern for community. Members come together through their cooperative to focus not just on their own needs, but on those of the community at large. What it comes down to is this: when you are a member of an electric cooperative, you are connected, you have a voice, you can make an impact. And the role of the cooperative leaders is to ensure members stay connected to their cooperative and feel their voices are heard. NRECA.
So I'll stop right there and just want to leave space if anyone has any questions about the principles of cooperatives, or just what they heard in the video piece overall. Pretty straightforward, right? Sounds like family a little bit. So, and community. So I'll share screen again. Next slide.
It's the connection with the people we serve.
One of the main things we talked about was, what is a cooperative ecosystem? A cooperative ecosystem is a tangible, deliberate, thoughtful, and integrated system of people, policies, practices, and institutions that convene for the support and development of enterprises that are owned, controlled, and accountable to members of the community in which they exist. And they provide services like research, business development, education, asset management, operations, governance, finance, and then fundraising. But they are not limited to that. One of the main things that our co-ops and cooperative ecosystems help foster is community and culture, which is big here at Kepra. I'm going to skip ahead. These are videos from previous sessions, and you can see those on our website. And I have all these videos. All right, so today we're going to talk about growing cooperative communities. So get to a situation where cooperative grows to a certain size, self-governed by its members, et cetera, et cetera. How do you take it to the next level? So looking at that, today we're going to talk about exploring a few business models and the organizational structures of these cooperatives and cooperative federations that have reached sustainability and growth. Looking at the Mondragon Group out of Spain, Shared Capital Cooperative out of St. Paul, Minnesota, and the O'Brien Group out of Baltimore, Maryland. Mondragon is a large, huge, global, international, multinational cooperative. Shared Capital is a national player, CDFI, and O'Brien mainly focuses on the Baltimore area. Short background on Mondragon. They were founded in 1941 by a Catholic priest. It's a cooperative federation with over 70,000 members. 80 cooperatives. There's been some other numbers that say they're north of 80 now. And in 2022, they reported $12.5 billion as a cooperative. And again, they focus on finance, industry, retail, and knowledge/education. It was actually started by a priest who created a cooperative technical college to teach people in that community how to do industrial engineering, et cetera, and it's grown from there. They've pretty much stayed in that field and grown to a $12 billion plus annual organization. We'll watch a short video on Mondragon cooperatives, and then I just want to open up again the floor to any questions.
Cualquier empresario del exterior le dirá que lo más importante sea sacar el máximo beneficio. Nosotros decimos que la rentabilidad y el beneficio es importante para sostener a la empresa, pero que también es muy importante la generación de empleo.
We believe that it isn't good for anybody if somebody loses their job. If you lose your job, you haven't got money. If you haven't got money, you can't buy. If you can't buy, you can't buy our product.
El reparto de la riqueza más equitativa llega a más personas y por lo tanto más personas tienen la posibilidad de vivir más o menos bien.
La empresa es nuestra, pero somos trabajadores también, ¿no? Entonces no hay como un jefe que pueda haber en otras empresas, ¿no? Todos somos nuestros jefes y todos tenemos que tirar para adelante con la empresa.
La gran mayoría de las personas se integre más, se envuelva más y por tanto podemos ser más competitivos y competir con la empresa más mejor del mundo. Es el futuro, entendemos, del mundo laboral también.
En aquella sociedad anónima era realmente la sensación de trabajar para otro, acabar la hora y a casa y se acabó. Esto es algo como que forma parte más de nuestra vida, ¿no? Porque tomamos parte desde la cabeza hasta la cola de la organización, ¿no?
Al final que tenemos trabajo, que es muy importante. Muchas veces hay empresas que son capitalistas, si hay un tipo de paro, pues vas a la calle. Habrá unos que salen mal y otros mejor, pero tienes trabajo, no te mandan a la calle.
Soy la segunda generación de una familia cooperativista. Las tres hermanas somos socias en favor. Lo han hecho la generación de mis padres, nos lo han dejado en herencia y tenemos que seguir trabajando para dejar esa herencia a nuestros hijos.
So, I'll pause there and ask if there are any questions, things that people noticed in the organization, in the video that they watched about Mondragon. One of the things that stood out to me, hey Alvin, one of the things that stood out to me is, of course, in a traditional kind of capitalism, profit is number one goal. But Mondragon started out with the idea of we want to give people jobs. People that work can contribute to the economy, and in a large way, they've grown that way sustainably. One of the other things that I really liked about Mondragon, and they're kind of one of the darlings of cooperative organizations, and their overall potential is that they, for the most part, literally like own the area within which they work. So they've come up with cooperatives for every problem solution that was needed from those members in those cooperatives. through democratic decision making. That's from their own cooperative bank. They have their own cooperative university that trains future members of the cooperative and continues with skill development for members within the cooperative, their own grocery stores, their own cultural districts, et cetera, and really have kind of carved a path for what the potential of cooperatives is in the long term, over the years, et cetera, which is really inspiring to me and kind of one thing that keeps me excited about cooperatives and where they can go. But I'll do one of two things. I'll open the floor to Alvin to do his check-in, number color, Alvin, and if you were starting a cooperative, not the community land trust, if you were starting a different cooperative, if you were starting a different cooperative today, what would it be?
Hey everybody, Alvin here with Kepler Institute. Good to see you. Good to be here. I'm feeling like 9 turquoise, and today kind of a cooperative would I create? That is a good question. I don't know. I'm definitely thinking something around food. Maybe a catering cooperative. I don't know. I like to cook.
Thank you.
Maybe making curry.
And for those that are new here or joining us, Alvin does a lot of things in the organization, but also currently working on our community land trust program with the city of Indianapolis. So make sure to reach out to him and the team if you have any questions about that and where it's going. You want to add anything about that, Alvin, or is that enough of a promo?
That's plenty. Thanks, Damon.
Good. So again, any thoughts about the videos that we watched both on cooperatives and what they've been able to build in Spain, Mondragon, Spain with the Mondragon group before I get like super boring and talk about kind of their organizational structure? Yes, Mannheimer.
Thank you. Quick question. To what extent is the cooperative based in a locale so that people are within a pretty easy traveling distance, under a half an hour? They're not coming from 2 hours away to participate. Is it more like a college, a small town college, and everybody can walk to work? How does the physical layout of the cooperative reinforce its mission or maybe irrelevant to it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And it varies from cooperative structure to cooperative structure. We have things now, I'll start with Mondragon. They are kind of based out of that area in Spain and have kind of taken that over. And it does help to reinforce culture, to have those people next. I believe you talked about it earlier. There's more collective and creative collaboration when you are together and things of that nature. But you don't necessarily have to have everybody together in the same area cooperatively. They're international players, so they have subsidiaries all over the place, but they're centralized out of Mondragon, Spain. There are other cooperatives too, even nowadays with blockchain technology, internet technology. You have this conceptual idea of platform cooperatives where, for example, I could own a worker cooperative in Dallas, Texas, and we partner through a cooperative federation that may be based out of Minneapolis, and we all work together and cooperatively that way. So Zoom meetings, retreats, annual meetings, all those things, continued education, workshops, et cetera, help build that. And I think one of the things that's critical to that is that education and learning are one of the cooperative principles that continue to keep people engaged in it, because there is growth and development for those people outside of just, working and going home at the end of the day. I'm sorry, Pamana, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. And so I think it's the Mondragon is probably the most diverse in the sense that it has a university, a bank, and those kind of things. And just wondering if you've seen any other cooperatives as diverse. I know here in the United States, we have large cooperatives, but typically they just focus on one thing. Like I think State Farm is a cooperative. They just focus on insurance. And I forget which one is like the beverage company, if it's Tropicana or some other.
Ocean Spray.
What is it?
Ocean Spray.
Ocean Spray. So, but in the context of the diversity, have you seen any others in other places that have the diversity that Mondragon has, or just mainly they usually focus in one area?
Yeah, so no real distinct names come to mind except for Co-op Inc., which is based out of, I believe, Great Britain. They're well diversified, service companies, product-based companies, grocery stores, et cetera, et cetera. So you may see that blue square with the COOP. So they're very diverse. In Canada, they have organizations as well. I believe Alvin talked about one where neighborhoods are kind of coming together cooperatively for food, music, cultural districts, et cetera, et cetera. In the US, it is a little bit more refined and constricted. I think one of the things, so when you look at our largest cooperatives in the US, those north of like 20 billion a year, those are usually centered around agriculture and farming. And so we probably have our most strides in agriculture and farming here in the US. And I do think that is because of governance and policies. And it's very different in terms of rules, regulations, laws for setting up cooperatives from state to state. And so we have a lot of barriers in terms of being more diverse. Now, those are those organizations that fall under a cooperative structure. If you look at an organization like Kepler, we do a whole bunch of stuff cooperatively, but we aren't necessarily a cooperative. But that's
okay. Thank you.
Great question overall. Thank you. Any other questions? Great questions. Oh, we have Mimi.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, and I'll check in with Mimi.
Okay. I didn't have a question, but more of an observation. I used to live in Spain for a while, and watching that video made me miss living in such a blissful socialistic society. But it made me wonder how cooperatives would be different in the States. I mean, in my experience being in Spain, even just like communication ecologies are so vastly different there. Like when you communicate with a stranger, the second question they ask you after your name is never, "What do you do for work?" Whereas here, it is absolutely and always related to productivity, and your worth is found in what you do. And so I wonder how cooperatives do look differently here in the States, and if it feels a little depressing sometimes to try to make it work.
Alvin, you want to? No, Alvin's going through some. Yeah, no, that's a great point. And it does feel more like an uphill battle. One of the things that kind of started this journey a few years ago is we did a collective book study with Dr. Jessica Gordon-Nimhart, a professor who wrote the book Collective Courage, which was really about how the African-American struggle coming to the US was centered around collectivism, cooperative work, and working together, and how that's kind of always been an innate part of our nature overall. I think one of the things at Kepra that even brought me into it was like, oh, they're working a little bit differently, and it's more about collectivism and less about individuality. Pabana was talking about that earlier today in our staff meeting, and I feel like it's almost like it's two different worlds in a sense when you talk about working cooperatively, even to the point where they say don't say cooperatives, say collectives, because people run away from cooperatives because it's touted as socialism, whereas kind of against that argument, you look at organizations like Mondragon who definitely compete in capitalism against other large international companies, and they've been able to maintain and grow based on what they want to focus on, based on coming from their members in the organization. So I really think it is about intentionality, and I feel like there is a lot of intentionality for a certain way of means, top-down approach here in the US that you just don't see in the rest of the world. We're just young and need to grow up, really.
I'll say, and then I'll say though, it also depends on region, because like we have a lot of partners on the West Coast, and I mean, they talk a lot about, advocate for, and participate in cooperatives. So cooperative housing, cooperative work environments. Like Damon did research on the Sustainable Economies Law Center, which is modeled as a cooperative worker developed law firm. And, like again, so, but the Midwest, and we do have some cooperatives here. We have one housing cooperative here in Indianapolis, but it's just not, I guess been looked at, talked about, and developed as much in the Midwest. But on the West Coast, you can find a lot more examples where people are, participating in cooperatives and working together and those kinds of things.
Thanks. Great feedback. Keep it coming. You got to hear more. You got to come back and do a mumbo jumbo about Spain. Mimi, how you doing, Mimi? Check in, Miss
Hey,
Zakun,
what's up?
who runs one of our cooperative programs in Kepler. Number, color, and if you were starting a co-op, not a food co-op, if you were starting a co-op today, what would it be?
Are you trying to limit me right now?
I knew you were gonna give me pushback as soon as I put it there.
It's part of my job. But greetings, y'all. I'm feeling like a blue jean color, like a 8.5. And if I was starting a co-op today, I have kind of a like impractical side, or I guess more loftier, dreamier side that's like a natural healing co-op. It's kind of tied to different spiritual practices and herbal healing and stuff like that, but very very holistic, so incorporate also astrology and diet and yada yada. You know what? I'm just gonna leave it at that one. Some of the pieces of it are maybe more loftier to incorporate, but I'll just start with let's start it around natural healing and knowledge sharing around that.
Thanks. Wow, some parallels. That's the second healing and wellness cooperative that came
Don't
out
we
of
need
it.
planet Earth?
You said don't we need it on planet Earth? Yes, we do. I'll continue share screen. Promise there's only a few more slides. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Again, we look at Mondragon, who touts themselves as a cooperative federation, and what their structure looks like as a multinational organization is they have a co-op Congress. Sometimes they call it a General Assembly, who elects the president, CEO, and also works with the General Council. Then they break down into a financial area, retail and allied area, and then they have industrial focuses: automotive, industrial components, construction, industrial equipment, home products, engineering, machine tools, several other divisions. And then of course that's underlined with what their original start was a university, and they continue that education, training, and research centers. Those individuals that work within the cooperative all have member vote and say on group decisions and decisions over the overarching organization, as well as those industrial areas of focus in their other subsidiaries, as well as patronage, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of the overall organization. And so it's a federation of cooperatives. And so to the right, we also look at what kind of their basic individual co-op structure is. Again, each cooperative has their own general assembly again, who elects a board of directors, who elects the management, who elects the staff in the organization. And alongside that, they have a management council, partly by community members in the organization and also by other members in the overall larger cooperative federation. Of course, again, a watchdog council and social council. And I'll admit, this got real heavy. Oh, what happened? I don't know why this is doing this. But it did provide more of a focus for me when we got into the individual structure of their own cooperatives. And again, at any given time, they have 80 to 100 cooperatives, and all cooperatives work cooperatively, which is the 6 principles in cooperative. And that's one point too that I've kind of learned and understood is growth comes through cooperation with other cooperatives and growing that same like-mindedness, that same thought, think tank process, et cetera, et cetera. Any questions, hopefully not too technical, about kind of the structure of Mondragon and even some of their subsidiaries?
Yeah, let me ask, if I may, Damon, do you think that there is any magic formula to a certain sort of organizational structure? Or, frankly, there's 100 different co-ops out in the world and they all have 100 different varieties. They may deal with the same general issues, but each of them has a structural organization that, it's hard to tell that number 42 is any better as a structure than number 16 or number 83 or something.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I got a couple.
You're the expert.
I got a couple answers there. There is no one magic formula. Even as we talked in Kepler about operating cooperatively, I was like, nah, we're not a co-op. We're not a co-op. We're a nonprofit. But then you go look at how all these other cooperatives work collectively together, whether it's a 3-person co-op or a 300-person co-op. And the structures vary from cooperative to cooperative. In most cases, well, not in most cases, but in some cases I saw where they weren't even legal cooperatives in the sense. They were either ESOPs or they were nonprofits that operated cooperatively, some for-profits that operated cooperatively. So it really is, for me now that I'm looking at it, less about the structure of it and more about how you govern the people in there. So for example, you can have an LLC and then your operating agreement, you can just put cooperative bylaws in there and work according to that. Part of this exercise for me was trying to figure out what makes sense in terms of what would make me feel safe about moving forward with cooperatives and Kepler. So it was a little selfish, but from what I found out, like I said earlier, like there really is no magic formula to how to work cooperatively, and it usually comes out of it's usually what's the word to M? It's usually self-organizing because it is people first. And it's a lot more diverse in this org structure because it's not a top-down profit-driven approach. And so there's no right or wrong way to operate cooperatively as long as you're reporting it correctly on your taxes at the end of the year. That's all the government really cares about, from my understanding. But no, that's
Damon, I'll build on that too. In addition to the governance piece, I would say the spirit as well as the culture. So just like Damon said, like whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit business, you can operate through a spirit of, and similar to what was it, Gloria earlier who talked about what people ask about when you like meet people in Spain. It's not what's your job. It's more about like seeing people as people and seeing people through the lens of relationships. And I would just say like cooperatives is a tool to do that. A tool for us to, within our like kind of vocabulary of business, to start to build relationships. And I would say like reading Dr. Jessica Gordon Nemhart's Collective Courage, a lot of those cooperative initiatives came out of community, people who went to church together, particularly churches in the Black community, as a center of relationship building and self-reliance and self-determination. So that definitely like is about the relationships first, the care for each other, and finding ways to provide for the needs that people have. And again, sometimes those change. And sometimes cooperatives, just like businesses, fail or serve their purpose, but nothing lasts forever.
Yeah, I
But
think
just trying to like get to the idea of it's really like a tool to really reconnect to our humanity and our relationships with each other.
And that's a great point too. I was reading, and I believe I discussed in one of the previous Mumbo Jumbos, but cooperatives tend to be movement driven. And so in the book study that we did, you look at kind of the history of cooperatives, and they kind of usually follow huge disparities in wage gaps between CEOs and the workers of those organizations. So you think of coming out of the Civil War, you had a large movement of Black cooperatives working cooperatively. Capitalism comes, squishes that down in various ways. During the Great Depression, you had another onslaught of cooperatives coming out of that work. And again, here, now that we're looking at kind of economic flux and everything going on post-COVID, this idea of cooperatives is starting to ring up again. And so it's usually encountered to kind of huge disparities, and it's usually movement driven. But one of the things that Alvin kind of hinted on that's really critical is that you still have to be disciplined in how you operate. And a cooperative can go belly under, like just like any other organization. Great questions there. Any other thoughts, comments on that?
I was just gonna just kind of like going back to that conversation about diversity, specifically like the amount of like diversity that like the Mondragon has. And I think that like it looks like that's really the essence of like cooperative communities, like especially the idea of like setting up the different organizations and institutions that like feed the collective needs of the community. And so I just like I think it's really interesting how like once you reach a certain level of like diversity in terms of like services and like operations, like the line between like a singular cooperative and a cooperative community begins to like get like really blurry, you know?
I'll say, and then want to share that we April joined us and we want to invite her to check in. That I feel like for the Bondugan one, a key aspect of it is the university, because like right now, one of the things that we're looking at is, how do we educate people about how to start a cooperative and make the process, I guess, more understandable and more user friendly. And by them having that university where people could go and get trained in what is a cooperative, how do we set it up with the structure, and help them to think about what is something in the community that they want to address, and people will come together. So I feel like, and then I know, like, I guess Co-op Sensi provides that. We have some organizations that provide that, but I think that's very key to being able to help stimulate more creation of cooperatives.
That's a great point. And that is what I've seen in a lot of cooperatives that have some sense of sustainability. There's this ongoing education and skills development factor. Hey, April, check-in question, number, color. I think I might know this answer. Number, color, and if you were starting a cooperative today, what would it be?
Oh, wait, but I want to know what you think my answer would be.
No, you got to answer first.
Yep. Hey y'all, sorry I'm late. Very late.
Good.
Right at the end. Color is like a sort of a mellow brown. Numbers about as 8. And if I were to start a cooperative, oh man, I think it would be like a group of folks who are interested in like doing connective work, like community builders who want to do connective work, whether it's through consulting or training or like on the ground practice, to like change our economic system and build community. So kind of like stuff I've been doing independently for a while, and then forming a cooperative with people who do that as well, but maybe have like complementary skill sets. Yeah.
Sweet. Thanks for sharing.
I also jump in on Steve's question. So out of my experience with the Community Controlled Food Initiative, which is the program that Damon mentioned earlier, that I was involved in the startup, and the stewardship of. It's a cooperative program where we source fresh food from local farmers here in Indy, and then we distribute it out of our own space to a network. Right now it's usually about like 80, we're doing about like 80 produce bags a month. And we deliver to like 5 apartment complexes around town. And we have different members, and some of them have been with us since we started in 2015. And when we launched, we were actually inspired by watching, well, it was like in response to an event in the community where the grocery stores had closed and people came together to figure out what they wanted to do. And Kepra hosted a forum, because a lot of what Kepra does, I think that's really important in cooperation, is just creating space for the energy that exists in community around different topics. So that happened, held a forum. Chinyelu was there. He was probably like 13, leading up this
15.
Oh, excuse me.
Oh.
And we watched an interview with Jessica Gordon Nemhard, who wrote Collective Courage, and decided, this group of us, that we wanted to start our own co-op to address the food issue or opportunity in the community. And so when we did that, we did look at other models, and we connected with a group in Louisville called Fresh Stop. We went there and visited them to see how they ran. And then they came here and joined an event that we had with about probably like 50 different folks that were interested in the launch of the Community Controlled Food Initiative. And so I agree with Damon, like there is no cookie cutter model, but in my experience, it's helpful to see other models and structures, and that kind of gave us some of the basics of what to start with. And then we adjusted and adapted that to our own community needs. And then that continues to evolve over time. And people cooperate through the model in different ways. Like some people, the cooperation is just putting their money into the program, which allows us to operate and buy from the farmers. And, you know, the more bags we have, the more food everybody gets, because, you know, at Cooperative, we're getting wholesale prices directly from farmers. And so some people, the cooperation is putting in their money, pulling it with everybody else and being able to do that part. And then they come get their veggies and they feel great about it. Other people, you know, volunteer and make, you know, the actual food distribution happen. Other people donate bags for other people, and yet other people, like, you know, give us ideas or go out and do research. So there's so many different ways that you can cooperate. And yeah, I think learning about other structures, how people do it, can definitely help you start or evolve your project. But no matter what, you're always going to have to adapt it to your local community, who you have, what resources you have access to, how it's structured. And of course, like Gloria was talking about, how you create something that's viable in the culture that you live in without compromising your principles. So like one way that we attracted people to Community Controlled Food Initiative when we were launching was we held the Good Food Feast, and it was a series of shared meals, and we would have cooking demonstrations, and we had like Green Latifah come on Valentine's Day, and you know, we had like fun stuff that anybody could connect to. And then those who really resonated with what we were trying to do were like, oh yeah, count me in, I want to get my food through you all. So a lot of different ways to do it.
Thank you, Mimi, for adding that. Any other thoughts, feedback? All right, back to the presentation. So one of the other cooperatives that I looked at in terms of organizational structure, and again, a lot of this research was kind of in line with opportunities, possibilities, models that worked in terms of where Kepler's going and how it's growing into its cooperative work as a nonprofit organization. One of the ones that we've had interactions with before in the past, but also went and did additional research on, was Shared Capital Cooperative, which is a CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution. And it provides financing to cooperative businesses and housing, cooperative housing throughout the United States. They invest in cooperatives that are 2 to 3 people, up to large multinationals. Up to large national cooperative. They've been in existence for 45 years, democratically owned and governed by its members. And that's across 300 cooperatives in 35 states, and I believe 100 individual investors who also invest in the cooperative in loans, or either loan repayments or in equity. Since their inception 45 years ago, they've invested and supported 970 loans, and currently are under management throughout that time, 66 million in financing to co-ops. And I did a quick breakdown. One of the things that I liked about Shared Capital is that it's a cooperative association or cooperative federation, but it's co-ops can invest in, individuals and co-ops can invest into the cooperative CDFI, as well as take out loans from the cooperative CDFI. So in that way, it's kind of this continual revolving loan fund, if you will, that helps support all these cooperatives across 35 states in the United States. And again, it's they didn't have a lot of information about their org structure, but just from looking at videos and things of that nature, I was able to kind of put some sense together of how they work and operate. Again, there's a larger CDFI loan. Oh God, there's a larger capital co-op CDFI loan equity fund. But at the top you'll see 300 plus cooperative members and 100 individual members, all through a general assembly select a board. That board selects a small staff that runs. I believe they may be under 15 in the staff that runs the CDFI. They also partner with accredited and non-accredited investors. From what I saw, they were one of the first CDFIs to have a direct public offering, which is things that we're looking at within Kepler. So they take investments through their online platform of anywhere from $500 to $500 at the minimum to $5 million. And they have different returns based on the different loan programs that people go under. And I believe that launched in 2021. And through that platform, they've already raised close to 4 million on that. So you're starting to see how technology is helping push and move forward cooperative ecosystem and fundraising, crowdfunding, et cetera, et cetera. And then again, individual members and co-ops can invest into the loan fund, and they can also take out investments into the from the loan fund. Any questions about Shared Capital Cooperative? And then the last one, which I really liked a lot, was the O'Brien Group. And they're relatively new. They were founded in 2016. It's a worker-owned cooperative conglomerate corporation is what they call themselves, which is a fancy way of saying they have holding companies. But they exist to grow profitable, useful, and impactful businesses that serve members, customers, and communities. It started in Baltimore as a kind of a reform and out of prison transition program, and has grown into a collection of holding companies and cooperatives, worker-owned cooperatives that work together cooperatively. And here, got about 20 minutes, so I'll show this short video and then we'll jump into some questions and just have some additional conversation.
Hi, Adam Rose, Oberon Cooperative Executive Team Member, here to talk about our organizational structure. Our structure can look complicated when you first see it, but my hope is that after watching this video, you'll be able to understand the basics, understand why we operate this way, and see where you fit in as a member and employee. If you do still have questions, please use the text box underneath this video to share with us what was confusing or what you'd like to learn more about. Let's dive in. Oberon has a 3-layered structure. In the center is the cooperative. This is the entity that all members own, where your membership and our profits reside. In the next layer are group holding companies, like Oberon Logistics and Oberon Health. The holding companies are entities that can receive outside capital, that is investment money, which is critical for us to be able to grow our organization. They also protect the core. So if there's one business that's struggling, we can contain the liabilities and it doesn't affect everybody. These entities are wholly owned by the cooperative, and in turn, the holding companies own the businesses where most of our members work day to day. Our operating businesses are truly the lifeblood of Oberon. These are the businesses that deliver products and services to customers in the market and earn revenue. Worker owners within each of these businesses are all members of the same entity, the co-op. This means that as a co-op member, you own the whole entity, regardless of where you sit and what you do. We have one single co-op. That way, we ensure that everybody's work is valued equally. Regardless of the pay rate that you make or the job that you do, we all share equitably in the value that we create and the effort and the work that we put in. So what does this look like in practice? Right now, our organization looks like this. Since we're growing and evolving, be sure to click the link below this video to download the most up-to-date version of this chart, including your company. The cooperative sits in the center with an associated employment services function. Having a single entity that employs everyone allows us to get better rates for healthcare and have more efficient HR systems. If your workplace recently joined Oberon, it might take a few months before you're officially employed by Oberon Employment Services. We'll let you know when that transition happens for your workplace specifically. Remember, while you might work here or here, you're a member here, and that means you own a piece of the entirety. Now that we've gone over the basics of what our organization looks like, let's talk about power and decision-making within this structure. As a worker-owned business, we want to make sure our workforce has real decision-making power. This topic will be covered in more detail in the workplace democracy modules. But in a nutshell, managers in the operating businesses make strategy and operational decisions, and members have oversight of those managers through elected boards, both at the individual business and the cooperative. Member-elected boards are the primary vehicle for members to guide management decisions and set strategic goals. Now, let's look at how profits flow through this 3-tier structure. Again, work is done and value is created in the operating businesses. The profits made in each of those businesses flows into the co-op through the holding companies and are shared equitably across all of our members.
Great. One of the things too that in addition to the Oberon org structure that we just talked about, doing some more reading, and they kind of their policy is, regardless of what subsidiary you're working in order to become a member in the larger cooperative, you go through a 90-day process of getting approval, and every cooperative member who pays patronage into the larger cooperative at 250 becomes that a member of that cooperative, and one member, one vote in the cooperative. And their promise to date is that 250 doesn't change. And again, patronage is one of the big things around cooperatives, but just wanted to throw that in there as well too. And Oberon is fairly new, young upstarts, technology, et cetera, et cetera. And of course they're based out of Baltimore, Maryland, which that area of the United States has a lot more open policies on cooperative development. And so they're able to pull off certain things that aren't doable in other states. But what I liked about them, if you can recollect all the other different structures that we went through, with this group, there's only one cooperative. And that cooperative has stakes in other businesses. Some of the other things that they did too is they also do a lot of mergers and acquisitions, which we're seeing a large movement towards existing businesses, baby boomers looking to transition and get out, transferring ownership to the workers in that cooperative. And so Oberon, even shared capital, I believe shared capital in the last 2 or 3 years has converted 11 businesses over to cooperatives. And so that's a huge movement that's going on there. And then lastly, with Oberon, in addition to kind of creating their own startups, acquiring and converting other startups and pulling them under, they also they have summer programs where they invite individuals, creatives, etc., to kind of create new cooperative ideas that may bring fruit to the market and go from there. That essentially is the end of the corporate structures that I looked at. Just really looking at what a multinational structure looks like, a national structure looks like, and then the local regional structure. Which I feel like if I had a vote, I really like the Oberon group. I've probably been preaching about it for like the last 2 or 3 years, but we are a co-op, so I just don't get to make that decision myself.
So I'm curious about that structure, Damon, because you said there's only one cooperative. And I think when you shared on your screen, I don't know if you said it was 300 cooperatives or 30 cooperatives that make up their membership. But anyway,
that was for shared capital, sorry.
That was shared capital, not Oberon.
Yeah, not Oberon.
So when Oberon talks about their holding companies, are those LLCs? And then the LLCs are owned by the Oberon Cooperative. Is that how it works?
Yeah, I do believe they are LLCs. I believe the cooperative is structured as, or at least taxes as an Inc., and then it owns LLCs. One of the things that they make sure they do, and with their holding company, they also receive outside investments from, family organizations, government, social impact investors, but they make sure that they maintain at least 51% controlling interest of the overall cooperative. Of the subsidiaries, LLCs, holding companies. Those holding companies, they pretty much just launch other LLCs that then employ members of the larger cooperative at the top. Is there a follow-up question?
Nope.
Okay. But yeah, I like that because it was just, for me, you can fail fast, right? You have one holding company, launch various things, and for me, I love the startup model, and it made a lot of sense. But our models work. I know we've talked about CDFI and things like that in terms of where shared capital is at in their growth over the last 45 years. And I do believe, Oberon is less than 10 years old. They didn't report on anything impact-wise. They are articles about them receiving $2 million here, $3 million there, $1 million here from other like-minded organizations, but they are still proving their business model overall long term under that structure. But I'll stop there.
Well, I do have one more question. So when they launched, it's the way that they grew so fast through mergers and acquisitions versus coming up with or forming new cooperatives?
Yeah, now they didn't talk from now. The organization that did the most kind of mergers and acquisitions is Shared Capital Cooperative. And so they've done that, I think, as late as 2022, they had reported converting 11 organizations over to cooperatives. when I saw Oberon, they only converted one organization over to a cooperative, and I don't have their companies up.
So when they started their own cooperatives first, and then they
Correct.
started some over. Okay.
Correct. And when I looked at them maybe a year or so ago, that was their big thing. They were like, hey, if you're a professional and you've built business and you want to receive 150K to come over and start a co-op with us, let's do it. I think they've kind of honed in since the pandemic and funds and kind of just focus on service-based cooperatives. And so I think they only have like 5 standing businesses under the larger cooperative, but it's all through those different holding divisions that operate the holding companies then by the cooperatives. But again, just the goal and the aim of this was just looking at what is the lifeline of a cooperative from inception, what does it take to be successful, and what could potentially growth and sustainability look like from a cooperative organizational structure. And again, to Steve Mannheimer's point, like there is no one cookie cutter way of doing it. It's kind of self-organizing and based on the people, which is great, not just a couple dudes at the top holding all the money, which you love. But I'll stop there and ask if there's any other questions, or people want to go back through the slides and ask any other type of thing.
When we're talking about a city like Indianapolis and you're trying to promote the idea that the cooperative structure and culture is a viable alternative to the sort of solo entrepreneur, I've got whether I'm trying to open up my own restaurant or I've got some great healthcare product that I want to sell. I mean, everybody sort of starts off and they say, and I'm going to be a millionaire one day when enough people buy my chapstick or enough people visit my restaurant. But are there types of businesses that do better in certain sorts of cities, certain scales of, operating an entrepreneurial enterprise in Indianapolis? I've got to believe, now maybe I don't know, but I've got to believe that that's different than trying to do it in Chicago or trying to do it in Shelbyville. Two extremes. Is there a kind of a general scale or general realm of enterprise that in the beginning at least lends itself to this kind of a cooperative organization? Big question mark.
Yeah, no, and I definitely would like others to add, and then I kind of share what little I know about it. But you look at organizations like the ICDC, Indiana Cooperative Development Corporation, and they mostly focus on agriculture. I know from a federal dollar standpoint, agriculture is like our biggest industry, and we get most support around that. I think kind of the issue with that, and even how we're looking at it with working with ICDC, is this difference between rural co-ops, which are heavily supported, sustained. There's even legal structures recognized by Indiana for the agriculture co-ops, and what does it look like to have urban grower farming co-ops, et cetera, et cetera. So agriculture is another one. Anything electric and power. You may have noticed there are a lot of satellite technology, solar, et cetera, et cetera. Electric and energy cooperatives are huge in Indiana. But then to a point that Alvin was mentioning, it really is about the movement and the people in those. And so you do look at more kind of democratic or social parts of town, parts of the state. So you look at cities like Bloomington, which has a lot of kind of smaller mom and pop cooperatives, but they are sustained because that is kind of what the movement and what the people want to see. So I think of Bloomington, Bloomington, Indianapolis, and I believe Fort Wayne. But from what I've seen, Bloomington, it seems to be the most liberal in terms of let's start a co-op restaurant, a co-op housing, et cetera, et cetera. And then here you'll see, just because in response to the economy, COVID, et cetera, you'll see more housing cooperatives, and even what we're doing here within CAPRA in terms of land security, community land trust, and food cooperatives. So all those things that are needed here. one of the things that kind of perturbed me is I didn't see a lot of creative cooperatives. We don't have a lot of technology cooperatives, but you look at places like New York and California, even Illinois, like they have platform cooperatives, media production cooperatives, worker cooperatives. But if you look here, it's usually mostly around agriculture and then electrical and power. But Pambana, maybe or even Mimi, you have some thoughts on that as well too.
Well, the only thing I was going to say, which we know, just like Kepler, like the ICDC, Indiana Cooperative Development Center, I think is people who have legally said that their structure is cooperative. So, even across the state, and when you were talking, Damon, it's like, I wonder what would happen if we tried to host a conversation and say, we want to invite people who operate as a collective, but they didn't like file as saying this is our structure. And so the difficulty in terms of knowing, what diversity we have in terms of collective cooperative structures is that the ICDC only looks at those who've said that we're using the legal cooperative structure and we're calling ourselves a cooperative.
Good points.
Yeah, I'll say, I mean, it's a great question about industry, and I don't know. I'd be interested to see, I mean, what are the types of businesses or industries where cooperatives tend to do better or worse, and talk about why. I would say, just what your question made me think is, I mean, just like any other business, like as far as scale, like you want to like match the market that you're in. At Kepler, we talk a lot about art of the start, which is start where you are with what you already have access to. And so, to me, that's like low overhead, bootstrapping, making use of like existing resources, and just starting with your assets and what's your minimum that you can launch. I think it's hard going into business, starting a business. Most businesses fail, period. So I think cooperatives, like any other business, you got to make sure that you don't. I'm personally not a big fan of like the debt model to starting a business. I think it can work sometimes, but what I've seen work best in my community is the art of the start, is the low to no capital, and then get that going, get your processes in place, your team in place, your customers in place, your marketing, and then build on that to scale. And shoot, you made me think of something else with your question, but I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get it back right now. It's similar to other businesses. Like, do you have a sound business model? Is it profitable? Like I will say the food businesses are hard in general. I mean, grocery stores are like 1% to 3% margins, if that, because that was years ago and it's only gotten harder. There was some interesting things going on in the pandemic with the grocery store model. But nonetheless, you just really definitely need to consider in general the profitability of different industries and what your goals are. So like for the Community Controlled Food Initiative, our co-op is monetarily not profitable. It is like basically break even, but that also includes some funding from grant sources, which I still consider entrepreneurial and how we like pursue those and manage them within our work, so that we intentionally seek out resources that support what we're already doing and the goals that we have. But so why would we do, a program like that, or why do I consider it successful? Because we're looking for other things, aside from financial profit. We wanted to see
access to fresh food. We wanted to see more dollars going to support local folks, farmers, and we wanted to demonstrate to ourselves that we could build our own model to access food in our community when other approaches weren't working to do that. And then we've been able to sustain that for, 7 years. And so, I think a lot of times too, you just have to ask yourself and have a lot of discussions in your community about what your goals are with your business. And so if it is about making profit, then you got to be real. Like, a food business may not be the best choice. But what's in alignment with the outcomes that you're looking for.
Alvin, were you adding, or am I just anticipating? Oh, you're frozen.
I can just repeat that. I mean, thinking about Mimi and cooperatives, that one of the benefits is with consumer cooperatives, it's about who you trust to know and what do y'all need. Even if it's like a group of parents, if you got a couple families that have kids, smaller kids, and you want to like take turns looking after the kids once a week or cooking dinner, stuff like that. So like, I would just say cooperatives aren't just like a business model, but also a way of thinking in terms of, what do we need in our community, whether that's like basic needs, and that may not be profitable and may not be even a sustainable business that provides employment, but provides benefit to the folks who are part of that. Both relationships, spiritual betterment, cultural betterment, and finding ways to reconnect with each other and that's often through practical needs that also lead to relationship needs.
Well, in that case, Alvin, what you just said sounds like a description of a commune rather than a cooperative. At least I would have used the term 50 years ago. And it's also sort of tied into a barter economy, where I will mow your lawn if you give my kid piano lessons, sort of thing, which is fine. And you can't necessarily quantify that, although there are attempts to approximate a quantification. Mowing my lawn costs $50. Piano lessons cost, 2 for $25. So, I mean, it's a viable approach. There's still kind of a business model involved, but it's driven by other things rather than a profit motive, as you suggest.
Correct. And I think that was one of the things that I really liked that stood out about Mondragon. It was really about providing jobs and opportunity, versus profit being central to that. And you see what has grown out of that. And like you said, I feel like there's always been collectivism in just how we've moved as people, as tribes. But I feel like co-ops is just so that we can get taxed accordingly. So I like to use the word collectives. But I'll stop there. We go from 3 to 4:30, and we're 4 minutes over in respect of people's time. But I definitely, if there's more questions, thoughts, ideas, I won't say next steps because I'll get in trouble for that. But thoughts, ideas, anybody feel free to share them.
I got to take off, but thank you very much. This was very stimulating. Really appreciate everybody's insights. Thank you. Great to see you again, Damon. And maybe
likewise
next time.
Yeah, I definitely want to invite you to the porch to come talk to the elders and the group over at Kepler in terms of what you've been doing, and maybe there's some synergy.
I would love to do that. Okay. Thank you. You have my email, I assume?
I think I have your number. Let me make sure I still have that. No, I don't.
Well, it's 317.
Okay.
Whoa, hold up.
Sorry.
Maybe give me one
Just drop
second.
email in the chat and
okay, sorry. Can he drop it in the chat for you?
Yeah. Why don't I do that?
We're live on Facebook right now.
We are live.
Okay. My bad. My bad.
Well, he probably will welcome the attention.
Well, I'm gonna send it to Kifru. Here we go. It is. Thank you very much for your insights on all this.
Yeah, thanks, y'all. This was really good.
Yeah, I was going to say the way the conversation was going at the end, we might have to find some way to get Damon back in here, extend the series, you know?
Well, hopefully, well, as we work on the progression, because it's like Damon said, ongoing learning and progression. And we've been looking at, are there some cooperatives that we could potentially pilot? So as we learn and as it progresses, definitely having Damon come back and update us on what's going on.
And I can show you better than I can tell you.
Oh,
drop that
Well,
in.
yeah. Before we get off of here, I do just want to say thank you to everybody that came in today, and thank you to the Indianapolis Recorder for allowing us to stream our conversations to their Facebook platform. Greatly appreciate their mutual support and just like being in community with them. So
I want to say also that Kepra has launched this annual campaign. So if you'd like to support Kepra, give.kepra.org. So
yeah.
And if I could make a quick shout out, there's an event I just learned about tonight on local digital fabrication and production that a friend I met a couple months ago is giving. You can call in virtually, but I dropped a link in the chat. It's at 6:30, so people aren't going out doing anything on a Friday night. You can.
It's First Friday. All the art places are open.
Oh, yeah.
Harrison Center. Check that out.
Thank you, April. Well, yeah. All right. Thanks,
Thanks,
y'all.
everybody.
Great work,
bye,
everyone.
everybody.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thanks, y'all.